What's happening, y'all? This is Quentin Williams with Consciousness Conversations and Project I Am You. We have two very special guests with us today. We have Lee Williams and Mark Frazier from I Am Positive One, an amazing community service-oriented group here in the Charlotte area that is doing amazing work in the schools and the neighborhoods with youth, with adults alike. So welcome, fellas. Thank you for coming into the studio today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you inviting us.
Absolutely. So Mark just rolled in. He was stuck in traffic, bad accident over on 77. Mark, Lee and I have been sitting here and just shooting, just having a conversation on any and everything that came up. And one of the things that we just recently touched on was spirituality. And, of course, with Consciousness Conversations, that's a huge area of focus for us. Lee's background is very interesting because he actually studied
religious studies, yeah.
Yeah.
University of Richmond, what's up?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, man. What inspired you to go towards that?
To be honest, it was the only thing I was really interested in. I never really been interested in anything in, like, as far as academically, per se. And I was like, well, I don't really like the business school. I don't really like arts, which now I do. But at the time, it was just led to me to go there because I grew up in church a lot. And it fascinated me how somebody could tell me something different. And I was open to it. And once I took one class was the origins of Christianity. And they came from a very, very academic or a factual background when it talked about
objective and not
it wasn't objective.
Emotional.
It wasn't objective. It was just like, this is what it was. So during this time, this happened this way because it was this time period. And when somebody tells you it that way and it makes so much more sense than what you've already been learning it for so long, you have no choice but to just, okay, I mean, that makes sense because I've always been accepting person anyway.
So they gave you a little bit of context with everything that was happening in the Bible.
Yeah, everything, I could go on for days with, examples of things that are in the Bible. So, I just kind of stopped believing everything that it said, like, verbatim. And if you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous because what book do we ever take verbatim across the board? Like, it's got to be true.
So give me an example of what you mean by taken verbatim and how that might have changed and transformed over your course of studying. All
right. Well, one thing is like the Great Flood, right? The Noah's Ark, right? In context, it was actually a big flood that, happened from time to time, throughout history, big catastrophes happen, right? So it's hard for, me to say factually that this person is going to build a ark and have two of every animal and they're going to just hang out and chill when, and stay on for 40 days and 40 nights when factually that just sanitation alone is not going to keep any animals in one place for 40 days and 40 nights, And yes, you could talk about divineness happening in that time period, but you just
divine sanitation.
Yeah, I mean divine, things happening where it could be okay. Well, this is happening, and everybody's going to behave and everything. But you look at it, and anything that I can't see that doesn't happen regularly today because time doesn't really exist. Time is the same things that happened then should happen now. So there's only certain constants that go on in life.
So basically, just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean that laws of physics should be suspended.
Yeah, and then there's evidence of a flood, There's evidence of a flood, a big flood, but you got to understand that where it was in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So these rivers ran together like this, and in the middle...
He's making a triangle, point, a peninsula.
They came in like that, and in the middle is where all these people are. And you think about it. Before the internet came, did you know what was going on over in another country without looking at the news?
No, not really.
So to them in that area, it was a flood. It did end the world because that was everything that they knew.
You mean they didn't have satellites? They didn't know, they didn't have, angel telescopes?
No, I didn't have any of those things. So
okay, well, I'm being a little bit irreverent.
Yeah,
but, it's interesting because I didn't study religion in school. I studied marketing.
Yeah.
And before getting to college, I really had a passion about the Bible. Similar to you, I grew up in the church. My grandmother and my parents were really adamant about us going to church every single Sunday, but something didn't jive with me. You know, it didn't seem consistent with my perspective as an African American and someone who was very much coming into his awareness of self and his awareness of his place in time as an African descendant in America, having his ancestors brought over from transatlantic slave trade and things of that sort. So to have this huge religious presence in my household, in contrast to an awareness that it was forced upon us as a result, as a consequence of slavery and this interaction between Europeans and people of color, seemed to also be a friction within myself. And as somebody who was always, like literally from the first day I can remember, you know, was a deeply spiritual person, going out in nature and feeling that connection with all things and looking up at the sky and just feeling my smallness in respect to the grand cosmos. It was like, okay, so the Bible is telling me, you know, that I need to do this, that, and the third in order to get into heaven. And it seemed like the people who brought this religion to Africans didn't do those things to begin with. So what is this? Is this like, you know, those were the questions that really got me branching off into my other explorations of spirituality. I want to know what that process looked like for you.
It was kind of similar. And like I said, I was in church, you know, I was deep. Wednesday in choir practice, like youth council, president, you know, all those things that come along with going into church and stuff. So what I did, when I really got into college, it allowed me to start thinking for myself because I really just did what other people told me to. My mom went to church, my grandmother, all these people in church. So when you're in that environment, you do as your environment does, just as everyone else in the world does. Why are most Muslim kids become Muslim? Because their parents were Muslims. So at birth, this veil is put in front of your face, and you have no idea of anything different, but it takes a stronger person to be able to look past that and lift that up and say, you know what, that doesn't make sense to me.
So it doesn't really I hear stronger, and it sounds like you're almost putting yourself above people who don't take that time to ask that question, you know?
Well, no, because I don't put myself above anybody, you know, and what most people like hear from me is my passion for what I feel and what I do, you know. And if somebody asks me about like how I feel about this, I'll tell them, and I'll have every fact, that reason why I'm like that. But it's not the fact that, because we don't judge with Positive One. We don't judge. We don't worry about what other people do. We worry about ourselves. So when we speak upon what we feel and what we know to be true. You know, even though it's really universally true, but we know to be true as far, because we don't get into like the conversations of like really debating what the religion is and what this blah, because that's all irrelevant.
So what we talked about before coming into the studio, part of what we talked about is the process that you're talking about with going through, you know, this questioning phase. And the questioning phase is something that tends to precede the peace aspect.
Yeah.
But you have to get through that kind of rough patch of discomfort and almost identity crisis in order to get to a place where you really feel like you're standing in yourself. So could you go back there emotionally?
All right, well, like the part that where you're talking about knowing yourself, you know, because like, all right, you go through this journey of like doubting who you are, because now, like in college, I started thinking like, man, this is changing everything that I know taking these classes. And because like I'm sitting here and they're telling me these things, and they're showing me things in the Bible that can't be accurate. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, if I really how do I look at every other book? I look at it as a book to read, to learn knowledge. I take the stories and use them for what my life has to, for what my life is right now. I don't take it literally. There's a message in these stories. Why would I think anything different when this book, the basis of it, is built on sand? Because nobody knows where it came from, and it came from a whole bunch of different people, and they just put this stuff together And like, I could do that. You know, why do we think that time is more special than right now? I mean, if you really want to go, when I study Islam, the Quran was written by one person divinely. So the source comes from one person. And think about it. When you're in a room, right, and you whisper the one thing everybody's done that, whispering something to somebody, and then it gets like 10, 11, 12 people.
That game of telephone.
Yeah, exactly. So this book came out with, there's no printing presses. There's only handwritten things. Kings rule everything, so they can change whatever they want. So man's opinion has been there. And if you say this in church, like, you know, you're the Antichrist or whatever, you know, you're not, because you're just saying what factual things are. And if anybody has something to say about, you know, what I say, then only thing I'll say is like, why are you judging me? You know, like, because I'm just talking, and if you're upset about it, ask yourself why.
Why?
Yeah,
like,
why?
You're right, man. And the reason why I asked you that question, or at least posed that statement, was because, oh, by the way, Stephanie just rolled in, so you can say what's up to the audience real quick.
Yourself.
Hey, audience, it's Stephanie here with Housewife for Hire.
All right, one more time. Your mic was muted.
Not expect to say anything. Hey, everybody, it's Stephanie Lucibello here from Housewife for Hire.
All right.
What's up, Steph? Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
First time in the studio.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, make yourself
You'll get comfortable.
Yeah.
We've identified the newbie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight that is because I remember when I was going through my whole discovery phase, and I was really excited about a lot of the stuff that I was putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I was really excited about that process and reading the Quran and reading all these other religious books and the history of the time. And you had mentioned Constantine prior to us getting into, you know, the studio. And when I would share that information to my friends, I thought they'd be equally as excited about it. But there's often this defensiveness that comes up because for a number of reasons, right? When we base our entire world off of a assumption, and we begin to consider that maybe that premise is not quite accurate, it's very destabilizing. It can lead to huge identity crisis, and that defensiveness is a way to kind of skirt that. You know?
Well, people, I always say this, you know, people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusion destroyed.
It makes me think of the Matrix.
There you go.
Absolutely.
I don't know quotes from the Matrix, but I just know that, you know, people, if they have something in their mind and they don't want to change it, it's not going to change, and they will stand by that forever. And that right there is their downfall, simply because they're not open to receive what is real. Because if somebody came and gave me something that challenged everything that I know, first of all, you can't really do that because I'm always open. But if they did, I'll always listen. This is what we always do, is receive what people are saying, because you never know how relevant that will be now or in the future. So if you close yourself off to things, then you won't grow and you won't gain knowledge. And this is how we elevate mentally so well, because we're always receiving and understanding people are for where they are, but they still have something to teach because we're taking the best out of them.
Now, speaking of the best, right, we were talking about bringing your best to the table at all times, and how you teach the youth about bringing that energy to the table and bringing that peace. You know, could you talk a little bit more about the process that P1 goes through with the youth? And
Absolutely. You know, our focus with young people is really about, to Lee's point, developing themselves as individuals and really starting to look at themselves first, because that's the way that they can control their own environment. So now if I look at myself first, if I start to hold myself accountable for my actions, if I start to focus on my sense of self-worth, if I start to focus on my own self-confidence, and I'm aware of who I am and I know exactly who I am, then that's when I begin to flourish. Because now it just like, you know, and I hate to almost be redundant with this statement, but it's just like when Lee was talking before and he said, you know, no one could really come to me and tell me that I don't know myself or understand who I am or question my belief, because it's mine. I own it. I know who I am, right? Mm-hmm. So now if I move within that, this whole system, and, you know, the conversation about religion, right, where religion is a system, right? It's basically a set of rules that somebody said this is what you should follow, whether you believe in it or not. And since most people fear not having that, because now if I don't have a system, then it's just me. And I have to think for myself. And if I think for myself, I have to take the risk that I may be wrong in my thinking. And that creates a ton of fear. So we want to focus with young people to say, look, you have to understand yourself first. You have to understand your own set of areas of opportunity, your strengths, everything. Because once you fully understand who you are, then
that's when your power
unstoppable.
Comes. That's when your power comes. Yeah.
You can then begin to do whatever it is that you really want. And then 2, you won't be at a place where you'll have anger or you'll have a ton of negativity, because that all comes from us questioning who we are. When people are upset and they're negative, it's because they're wondering, am I doing what's right? Am I doing the right thing? You know? And to me, back to the religion conversation, religion creates that like no other system. People are constantly wondering, am I measuring up to what?
Yeah. Am I going to get to heaven?
Because
am I going to do this?
If your focus and your belief is strictly God, God is love. God is
put
accepting.
that love first.
Yeah. Love is
So that love supersedes everything.
The thing that I find that's really unique about I Am Positive One, I'm sure that there's other organizations that put forth a system in a similar fashion that you are doing, but these organizations that are set up like yours are in a rarity. And on Consciousness Conversations, we were having a conversation with a brother by the name of Joshua Greco, and it was about practical spirituality. The thing that we had discussed is that in the spiritual community, you know, there's a lot of people who do detach themselves from an organized religion, and they run towards these New Age movements and even ancient practices like the earth-based cultures and shamanic practices. The thing that becomes impractical about those is that through colonialism, and when we're talking about the ancient spiritual practices, and with the New Age movement, since it's so new, these systems really haven't been put in place with those, and with shamanic practices, and some of those have been lost as a result of colonialism. So what ends up happening is that when people run away from religion, they are attaching themselves to like this idea of freedom, but in a similar fashion that they attach themselves to religion, because they don't know exactly why they're doing certain rituals. They don't understand why they're, saying certain words. And for me, that intention that you put behind it and understanding the connection that it has to all things is really what gives spirituality its power. As you were saying, Lee, with, the universe doesn't suspend its natural and physical laws just because it was something of divine orders. Miracles really are a process that happens that is beyond our understanding of science, but it's still physical. It's still logical. That's interesting that P1 establishes a system. They give students something, or youth and everybody who's a part of P1, they give them something to latch onto that's very tangible and is very immediate because it's dealing with their personal experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you have to do is focus on self. You focus on self and you get your core right, everything else falls into place. So people don't understand, a lot of people don't understand that there's nothing outwardly. Everything is from within. Like, seek not outside yourself for everything. Like, I'll get in the mic, everything. Seek not outside yourself, because all the answers are here because they're already here. Everything is omnipresent. So everything is already here. You just have to be able to open your eyes and change your mind and change your thinking so you can see it. That's why you have immense power, because you can do whatever you want to, literally, if you just put your mind to it. But with society, we look at things like, well, that's not for me. He had this. I mean, I go through this stuff every single day. Like, how can you be so happy when you're doing this stuff? How can you do, like, how can I not? That's my question. And when you change your thinking to everything is good, then you don't know anything else. So why would I waste my time worrying about what happened bad? And I can look at it as a lesson to learn something and gain more knowledge from that experience, instead of like making it instead of making it a problem and, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. This person, I didn't get this job at work and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a reason for everything that happens in your life, and you control it. And people want to point the finger all the time, like, this person did this to me, this person did this to me. I'm looking at somebody right now who had a lot of things done to her, you know, and she's still here and smiling every single day. So you're telling me that your job, you know, made you upset because you didn't get to take off early today? That's not a conversation I can really have, you know. I'll be like, okay. And I'm very cordial with everyone because there's levels to this, you know. There's levels to this thinking.
That's an interesting example that you use. And I find that to be a challenge sometimes for people to be spontaneously positive in the midst of a conversation that isn't really on key with where their mind's at. So how do you influence people who seem to be caught up in the minutia of every day, you know, and influence them to think greater?
Well, two things to that question. Like, first, well, the end all answer to that is I don't try to influence people, just because of the fact that if I'm trying to do anything, then I'm interrupting my flow. So I just go and do what I'm supposed to do. And it happened because I tried to do the influence of people, try to make sure that, you know, hey, yo, come do, I'm feeling this and I'm doing this. We're doing all these things. Me and Mark talked about this thing for like a year, you know, and it was just slowing down our progress because we know that we're lights. Stephanie, she's a light. Mark's a light. I mean, you're a light because we're here. It's levels to it. But the thing is, you're still a light and people see lights all the time. So in the dark, if there's a light shining, they're going to see it. And like they will go to it because they're attracted to the light. And everyone likes the light, you know, until it gets too bright for them, and then they turn around. But when they should really realize is that once you walk into a room like full of light, you get blinded. If you just wait for a second, your eyes will adjust, and then you'll start to see clearly. But most people don't do that simply because they're scared of that fear that goes on. I don't want to get here and do this. But so we never try to do that. I mean, I got a lot of flack back from other people just because I believe what I believe, you know? And I don't know if you ever read The Alchemist. And
Absolutely. I just finished it for the third time.
I've read it like 3 times, you know? And the thing is, he said something in that book. He said, when you possess a treasure and you try to tell people, seldom are you believed. That's why I don't go out and tell people stuff like that anymore. I only do it upon like asking me, because I know what I'm doing. I'm totally confident in what I'm doing. The person I'm talking to probably not. And I was trying to help them because they came to me complaining about something. You know, I'm like, all right, well, if you don't like my answer, then what do you want me to do?
One of the things I had to recognize is that when people complain, oftentimes it's because they just enjoy complaining.
Absolutely.
They get caught up in that. They get caught up in the negativity and don't understand that
It becomes
really,
habit.
Yes.
It becomes habit because that's how they begin to deal with life. They begin to deal with life in that realm where they say, well, if I just complain about it, now I'm the victim, and then people consistently feel sorry for me, and that's how I move.
And how you get that's
Right?
how they gain their energy, but it's negative energy, so it keeps them down in that place.
Because they never accept truth. Like when you ask the question about, you know, how are you guys influencing people? And at Lee's point, that's not our goal. Our goal is first and foremost to get every person to accept the truth about who they are. Because you can't change. I mean, if you look at any psychological person and study, they always say, well, you got to look at yourself first. You almost got to sort of go into yourself. You almost have to accept the situation for what it is. So you have to accept your truth. You know, when you become an alcoholic, the first thing, when you are an alcoholic and you're trying to recover, the first thing you have to say is, I'm an alcoholic, right?
Right.
Because you have to accept the truth that I'm an alcoholic. So you have to accept the truth of who you are. And once you accept the truth of who you are, change is easy. You naturally start to become who you are. And you naturally become self. So that's when you begin to grow at that point.
You know, as a person who practices yoga, these principles, first of all, we all recognize that the truth is truth. It doesn't have a label.
It needs no help.
And it's not
just
owned by
there.
anybody.
Yes.
You know, and it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal that these truths do exist since, you know, over eons and millennia, and it's culture to culture. So in yoga, they talk about how you really have to go within, and they use, you know, each culture has their own language for talking about this.
Yeah.
So They talk about going within through meditation or through the act and practice of yoga, and really understanding the habit patterns of your mind, as you said, Mark, and that's the beginning, So the question was, it was leading, The thing I really appreciated about what you said, Lee, is that you're light, that we are light, and when we are light, our very nature is to shine. When we are love, our very nature is to love. Yeah. I don't love because I have to or I'm supposed to. It's my
just
nature.
What you are. Yes.
Yeah.
It's what you are.
When we go inside and we uncover the layers of untruths that keep us in a repetitive habit pattern of thought of negativity or stress or, complaining or gossiping. Once we uncover those layers and let them slaw off like, a snake sheds its skin, that's when the light can shine. Yeah. And by our very natures, we're going to be beacons for that. And people learn through experience. Yeah. And one of the things that they also say in the Bible is that, store not your riches in the world, store them in heaven. And for me, the world isn't necessarily a physical place. It's everything external, and I recognize that the universe really truly exists within each and every one of us. And scientifically, we perceive reality only through our senses, within our own minds. And that's part of the parallel of matrix that I was making. Yeah. And the second thing is that when I think of heaven, store not your riches in the world, but in heaven where they shall not perish. Heaven is not some place up in the sky or, it's right inside of us, when we go into our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, all those things with that, even talking about what we're talking about, and not to really get off the subject, but I want to make clear that we have no problem with religion, at all. I'm cool with everybody. I'll go in church and speak at any time. But the thing is we don't embrace what it means because you see it all over the place. You see a bunch of churches all over the place, right? And to me, I'm sure I'll go at some point somewhere, but I can't really get into a separatism of things because there's this church here, they believe this, they believe this. And really, what's the big difference here, right? What's the big difference?
When I read the gospel, Jesus made it clear that the church is a people. It's not a building. So when we ascribe to one specific congregation as, I'm a member of this congregation. And people do tout that, especially in the Bible Belt. I've really noticed it a lot more since moving down to Charlotte 2 years ago from New Jersey. People
rep their church.
Yeah, it's rep
their church heavy.
And if you're a larger church with bigger clout and you got a bigger Instagram following,
exactly.
I've never, I was just literally talking to somebody about this an hour ago. I've never been in a church where I didn't hear judgment come out of the pastor's mouth. And I've been to all of them. Well, not all of them in the sense of every church, but different types of churches, right? I've been in a Catholic church because I went to Catholic high school, Baptist, Presbyterian. I've been to a synagogue. I've been to a lot of...
You've explored.
I've explored, with the exception of Islam. That's the only one I've never explored. But I always hear judgment. I always hear that separatism of, on this side you're right, and on this side you're wrong.
And you know what's interesting is that I think that is definitely a peril that there's a danger of falling into. And I know, just being observant and mindful of my own thoughts and feelings, I don't necessarily speak judgment. Sometimes I feel judgment, and I have to remind myself that as soon as I step into that zone where I'm judging somebody else, even if I'm just looking at somebody funny, right? Or feeling some sort of way towards somebody, that's automatically I just shut that light off. And now I've fallen into that sort of negative pattern, and that's why I feel it's so important to be mindful. And y'all said it in a different way, but so important to deal with self first.
Yeah, and when you really deal with self, that's the beginning of everything. Because at this point right now, it doesn't take long to transform your thinking. Only thing you have to do is surround yourself with in the environment of what you want to be. So Mark and I think this way automatically now. It's not something that we go on because we have each other. We're checkmates, We were able to like see, hey yo, you know your ego right now. Like, yeah, I know.
That's awesome
Yeah.
that y'all have
Yeah.
that relationship.
Yeah, and like it's just it flows so easily because we only speak in truth. That's all we talk about. That's all we talk about. We only speak in truth. Anything like it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, what's the factual thing about this? That makes business and everything else so much easier because you never have to worry if this person's telling you a lie or not.
Right.
And it makes you check
Yeah.
your emotions.
Yes.
Because now, if I feel a certain kind of way about something, and I'm thinking, I need to talk to Lee about this, I have to first say, okay, is there truth in everything I'm about to say? Or is this an emotional thing and it's really my issue?
Yes.
Has nothing to do with anything else but my feelings.
Emotions could be an awesome and highly effective indication of where that word or that whatever that action is coming from. Like, okay, this could tell me if I'm in ego or if I'm in love. It's simple,
Yeah.
but you do have to have a level of maybe not objectivity, but distance and space and being able to observe that process and within yourself.
And really, you got to check it before you act. That's the biggest thing. And a lot of people, they fall into that, whereas they act on their emotion. And
impulsiveness,
Because
yeah.
we all get emotional. I mean, emotions happen. It's a natural thing. It's
energy.
a part of being right.
Energy.
It's a part of being human. You can't be human and not have emotion. Right? To me, it's not possible. But what you can do with that emotion is you can channel it and control it so that it doesn't always lead your actions. And now I do things based on my feelings all the time. But that oftentimes means that I'm not dealing in truth because I'm really just dealing in, well, how that made me feel. Okay, well, it made you feel that way, but does that necessarily make it what it is?
That's the awesome point.
Just because you think of something, like this world has been trained to think like to try to not accept things for the way they are, but just accept things for like how they feel it is, you know? So like this is what it is. Why would I try to change my mind and make it something that it's not? Because we're manipulating our minds because we don't like the way something looks or like the way something feels, and it might make us look at ourselves and challenge us for what we do. So no, that's not it. That's not what it is. It can't be. Like, why? Like, you're supposed to question everything because we're set up in a world that's automatically going to tell you what to do. You know, why do people get offended when you start asking questions?
Because they attach to it.
Exactly. And they're
attached to the
challenging.
position.
You're challenging, not really challenging. You're just asking questions, but they think that you're challenging their being or their authority, and they'll get upset.
And that's part of the illusion and misconception.
Yes.
If
Exactly.
you're not attached to the position, then it's easy to objectively observe that and recognize. And what Project IMU stands to, what we recognize through our even just the title of our organization is that we are all one.
All
we
the
are
same.
all the universe operating through different vehicles. So when you check me and you ask me a question, you're being a mirror to reflect my position and show me my blind spots. We all only have two eyes in the front of our heads, and we need our brothers and sisters to be those objective mirrors for us. And I really appreciate what you were saying about emotions. And Lee, you had said, that's they help us act. The word is structured very specifically, emotion. So it's really propelling us towards action. But something happens that's very interesting when we detach ourselves from an immediate and impulsive reaction to the
start
emotion.
to see truth.
You start to see truth, and the way that happens in a scientific way is that the emotion actually it's like a seed. And when it starts to bud, then most people act. But if we allow that seed to sprout, to grow, and to blossom, what ends up happening is that emotion spreads out throughout our bodies, throughout our minds, throughout our awareness, and we begin to act. It's like a feeler. We actually begin to have like this sixth sense, and we can understand where their emotion, number one, where the roots are. What is that coming from? Because just because I feel a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it's justifying my action. It just means this is the way I feel. So once it blossoms, we see where that's coming from. And then we can also see how it's affecting the world. We step outside of ourselves. And this is a natural process that only happens if we don't immediately act on our emotions.
Yep. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, just because I'm a believer, like, well, I always talk about, when you're emotional, whether good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's still emotion. It's all the same. So if you act off of something good, that's just the same as you acting off of something bad because you're not at peace. So once that emotion comes and flows in and out, we always wait 24 hours before we do anything acting, because we act off emotion. We've done that as a company, and it led us away from what we were really trying to do a year ago or so. But because it was a good thing, like we thought in the world, we said, oh, yeah, we do this, I did this, and made this money, blah, blah, blah. And then we went doing it, and, eventually that fell off a cliff because that wasn't true. It wasn't our purpose. We got excited about it. So it still works, but that's not our purpose. Mm-hmm. So when you act on emotion anytime, it doesn't matter. Anytime you act on emotion, you are going to build your foundation of whatever that decision is on sand, because it's not real. Here's an example I always use. It's like, all right, I'll ask you, like, all right, so when you're in high school, right? Mm-hmm. You have a high school sweetheart or something like that. Mm-hmm. You have a breakup. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it?
At the time, I felt like crap.
Yeah. How you feel about it now?
It doesn't matter. It
wasn't real. So your feelings changed. So it wasn't real. It was just emotion at the time. Mm-hmm. Because if you feel one way, then shouldn't you stay the same if that was real? Things that are real don't change.
The way I see it is that emotions are like cycles. Everything, and I love that you use sand, that metaphor and that image, because everything changes in life. A star, the sun that's shining today is going to one day explode. It's just our small scope of life that allows us to feel like it's eternal. Mm-hmm. But it's actually going to die, just the same way the Earth's going to die, just the same way that each and every one of us is going to die, same way our cells die. So the way I see it is everything in nature is symbolic of, like, again, there's no disconnection. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the moon, I'm looking at the phases. Emotions, they come and go. They fade. They ebb and flow, just like the waves. So my emotions at that time were real. Mm-hmm. The reality is that emotions fade, So I think that, yeah, my love then for that woman was real. Mm-hmm. My love may not have been eternal.
Yeah, but then that's what I'm saying. So if emotion is real, because we don't believe emotion is real whatsoever, because it changes all the time, up and down, up and down. It's like my wife, She like, my wife, she'll admit it, she not as much so now because of our consciousness as a family and everything, but I always stay here, and she'd go up and down, emotion. I'm saying, hey, there you go, up and down, and good feeling, bad feeling. But the thing is, she understands now, like, why am I dealing with that stuff? Because I don't need to, because at peace, there's no emotion there.
Okay.
So when you set yourself in peace, you don't have to worry about emotion, because when you're looking at truth and all the emotion and hoopla and hype goes away, there's only truth. So that's all you see. So you're never emotional.
Yeah, guys who are listening, our studio's positioned right next to train tracks. So you're hearing that go by right now. We're in North Carolina, former manufacturing headquarters of the United States. But anyway, yeah, I see what you're saying. I see the distinction. Part of what you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of what I'm hearing is that you're distinguishing between the temporal and the eternal, the essence of things versus the surface level.
Big picture, like, so many people look at things in details, in little details, which is cool. But you have to look at things from overall, right? So your entire lifespan, like, you don't go back thinking about the girl you broke up with in high school, or got broke up with you in high school, because it really doesn't matter. You said it yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't matter, then why stress over it? You're just creating more things in your mind that really don't matter. So it's wasteful. When you only look at truthful things and truth comes out, then you can pinpoint all of your energy at truth, because the emotion is all something to get you away from what you really are.
That's really profound right there, because we were talking a little bit about this outside of the studio too, like being rooted in that essence is like an anchor point. So even though you're not emotionless, I
Yeah.
see you getting very passionate.
Nah, it's passionate,
Like,
yeah.
you have the emotion, but you're not allowing it to pull you from your anchor point.
It never goes any, like I was telling you outside. People look at me because I'm a passionate person, and they hear me talk, and I'm a passionate person. What they don't understand, I'm so peaceful on the inside. I'm so peaceful on the inside because I know how to find my peace automatically. I'm built for this. I've do a year and a half constantly putting good things in my head, constantly reading books, constantly doing all these things, audio tapes, every single day, reading quotes. When I was on the road and stuff, my hotel room's full of quotes written on flashcards. So I engulf myself in this stuff. So therefore, like you said, once you connect with yourself, you have a different ability, and you have an ability to read whatever energy is there, whatever energy people are coming with, like that, because of the fact that you're connected with yourself as energy and your source of the universe. So therefore, if you are energy, then you know other people's energy and what vibrates from within them. It's so easy, but people can't really go to that level because it's above and beyond anything that they could ever fathom.
It sounds like you're a Jedi right now.
But yeah, call it what you want. You know what I mean? Like, you call it Jedi, or you just call it, like, everybody has this ability.
So let's really examine that, because one of the reasons why Project IMU exists is so that we can be an intersection where artists, activists, and social innovators meet. What you're talking about is taking the theory out of spirituality and taking the philosophy, just dry talk, and putting it into practice, living it, and being a beacon so that other people can see that it's possible. So you mentioned a couple things, and I'm going to just draw this into a little picture here. All right, so I look at some of the brothers and sisters out here, who are really caught up in, mainstream culture and the flashy, and, I'm going to go pop bottles, and I'm going to go buy this car and buy these clothes. I mean, let's not make it seem like I'm putting those things down.
That was me. That was me.
And I don't, I mean, it is what it is. If they have a place in society. When you were talking about listening to audiobooks and reading and all these quotes all over the place, and you went to college and you studied religious studies, you got a historical context for, the water that we swim in terms of the culture that we live in. For me, that's a process of putting lots and lots of soil and then putting lots and lots of roots in that soil.
It's planting seeds.
Planting seeds. When we are just surface level, we're just like, oh, I want the external, glamour. When the storms come, they're gonna just wipe everything away because it's shallow to begin with. You know what I mean? And they got a parable about this in the Bible about the sower who dropped seeds on rocky soil, and some sprouted up real quick and got shriveled up by the sun. Some fell on good soil and then they sprouted, or the ravens came and they ate them, and then some sprouted on good ground, fertile ground with deep soil, and the roots dug deep, and those plants grew into large trees and yielded lots of harvest. So by going and immersing ourselves into an environment where we've got a historical context, where we've got the abundance of experience of other greats, and when I say greats, I just mean people who lived in their truth. That's a huge amount of, some people will call it depth, a huge amount of abundance where you can really begin to reflect on our other selves, from our other selves, and using those greats and our brothers and sisters who are also standing in our truth to show us objectively where we are, and really have that anchor point, that peace that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key to life. That's where joy comes from. That's where happiness comes from, is knowing yourself. Because when you get outside of yourself, you have no control. You only can control what's here. So why would I entertain anything that's outside of me? It's honestly like not smart, just not the smartest thing to do, because you can't do anything on the outside here with whatever happens in political terms or whatever happens in all these other things. That's why I don't watch TV. What can I change there? I can make the most change by being a light myself and letting that shine.
So we got, brothers and sisters in this room who get excited about reading, who get excited about talking about things of depth, who don't watch TV. I think that's so important, and that's exactly why we do these consciousness conversations, to put out into the universe, a new...
We're building.
Yes.
We are building right now.
So let's talk a little bit about what you actually do, right? Because we want to also give the understanding that this isn't just about conversations. You're in a community talking with the youth, having FaceTime. What does that look like for you guys?
Looks awesome. And we're constantly in front of young people. I mean, every week, we're in front of young people. And really what it looks like is, to me, it's very, very refreshing. Mm-hmm. And here's why I say it. Because now I'm never watch TV. I personally do watch TV because I'm a movie guy. I like movies.
I love movies too.
So, I do watch, TV because I like to watch movies, and I'm also a sports fan. Mm-hmm. But when things come across the ticker and you see what they're saying about society and the world and youth in particular, oftentimes a picture gets painted that it's all bad, right? The only thing that's going on in schools is kids are being bullied. Well, are they? Because really what's happening is kids are really just being kids, and they're really just being humans, and humans constantly challenge one another all the time. It's just oftentimes in school, most young people just aren't equipped to handle it. So because their parents aren't. We want to begin to equip them. So, for example, last week I did a presentation in front of a group of third graders, and I did a Q&A session like we always do, because the questions to me are more important than my presentation. So a young girl asked me, she said, well, what do I do if I have a really good idea for my project, but I'm being bullied by other kids who don't like it? And I looked at her and I said, how do you feel about your project? Well, I like it. I said, and that's all that matters. And you need to let them know that you like your project, you feel good about it, and you're happy, and you smile. Now, granted, is that easier said than done? Maybe. But if she says that, her power will be felt by the bullier, because now the bullier understands that I can't get through to you. I can't hurt you. And if they know they can't hurt you, the only thing that they have left is to respect you. Mm-hmm. That's it.
It's the energy.
It's just like you tell your kids, right? Like we all went through it, especially males, right? Mm-hmm. We all know everyone gets checked when you're a kid.
Especially in the black community.
Especially in the black community.
Yes.
So you will continue to be checked until you check somebody. Right? And that's what we teach our kids that. I teach my son that. Mm-hmm. That was his experience. And I taught him, look, man, I mean, here's your reality. So what it looks like every day, it looks awesome, because these are young minds. These are people who are thirsty for knowledge, for information. They're thirsty to continue to grow. So it looks phenomenal, because the energy that young people give you is so pure that it is the most uplifting thing you can imagine.
Because they're closer to the source.
They
haven't been tainted yet. Yeah. I mean, there's a veil still. There's still a veil still over their eyes, And some of them is not, though. But we put it there. We put it there. We bring fear to them.
We condition them.
Yes, we condition them.
We think
when
that
they're
we're
born.
preparing them for the world, but actually, they're here to show. Jesus was all about the children, because the children remind us of that purity that y'all are talking about, and it's really interesting and fascinating to listen to y'all talk, because you're talking about real world situations, children being bullied, talking about this young lady, and it absolutely is energy. And the energy, when we learn how to stabilize our own energy, and when that energy is stabilized in truth, there's such a power behind that. It doesn't matter about how that person looks. It doesn't matter about the size of the person, the gender of the person. If they can stabilize their energy in a way which we would call, in layman's terms, confidence, then that's what's king.
No, I was just gonna tell a brief story that speaks to that a little bit. So last week, my daughter comes home, and her school is doing some sort of fundraiser where they're selling Time magazine subscriptions. So I get her off the bus. We get home. She's like, "Daddy, I need to go to all the houses on the block so I can see if they want to sign up and do the Time Magazine thing. So instantly, you know what came into my mind? Man, you're going to bother the neighbors. They're going to look at you as that kid. So at first, I almost imposed my fear on my daughter. But I had to catch myself and say, no, you cannot basically hinder her confidence. You have to let her flourish. So I was like, Dee Dee, that's what you want to do? Handle your business. This beautiful little girl went to just about every house on our block and bet every person signed up. And the confidence she had from that. Because now she's like,
anything.
Wow, now I could do this. Like they said yes to me. But imagine if I would have said no. She would have never got that opportunity.
He would have put a ceiling on her.
Exactly.
He would have put a ceiling on her just because of his idea of what he thought he might know.
And we do that to our young people
all the time.
Every day.
All the time.
Unfortunately, and I love teachers.
Unconsciously.
I love teachers.
That's what
teachers
it is.
do it to kids all the time.
That's conscious parenting right there. That's what these conversations are all about. Putting that consciousness into action. That's awesome, guys. We're actually running out of time.
We're already done already? Jeez.
Yeah. Stephanie.
It's always quick.
Stephanie, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
All I can say is that it's obvious if you cannot change your surroundings or change the people's minds around you, how they see you, then why would you focus on anything but within?
Yeah. First.
Few words, very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
Let me tell people, go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at IamPositive1. It's all spelled out, everything, YouTube. And just please, like anybody, call us, email us. If you're trying to do something in the community, anything that's positive, we are about it.
And big up to you, Quentin, man.
Yeah,
we
man.
appreciate
Thanks
you
for having us on. I
and
really appreciate it.
This is just definitely a blessing, and it feels good to just be around like-minded people, man. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate all that you do, and what you got going on. Project IMU is awesome, and I'm just looking forward to continue to build with you, bro.
Yeah, man. We're taking this thing all the way.
Word, likewise. And tell us right before we go, listeners, they have an event coming up on April 2nd. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. Mark, you can tell.
Yeah. Happy April Genius Day. April 2nd, the day after what traditionally has been referred to as April Fool's Day.
My birthday.
But we believe in April Genius Day. If Lee was born on April 1st, then it has to be the day for geniuses because he's a genius. So, so we have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. We bring out volunteers every other month. So, yeah, Habitat for Humanity. You could go to IamPositive1.com. You can register. Come out. It's for a great cause. What better way to build people up than to help them out with getting one of these most important things, and that's a place to live.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So check them out, listeners. They're right here in Charlotte. So go to their website, I Am Positive One. As I said,
O-N-E.
O-N-E. Spell it out. Check them out on YouTube, Facebook. They got some amazing videos, some spoken words, some videos of them doing what they do in action as well. So thank you again for coming into the studio, Stephanie, Mark, Lee, and thank you for tuning in, listeners. If you want to check them out or have any follow-up conversation questions, you can hit them up on the social media or you can comment in the comment section on this post. So y'all take care. Peace.